I heard the richest man can't resist kind-hearted kids. So the first time I met him, I clung to my sister Mary, crying my heart out. Sis, no matter who adopts us, you'll always be my sister. Sir, please adopt my sister. I'm young, I can handle hardships. Mary was stunned. The richest man was moved and instantly decided to adopt me. Just like that, under Mary's utterly shocked gaze, I reluctantly got into the rich man's car. I cried. But I was faking it. Because I've been reborn. In my past life, Mary was adopted by the wealthiest couple because of her kindness. I ended up with a famous actor and actress. As adults, Mary squandered the riches and bankrupted the family while I became a popular star in the showbiz. Mary couldn't stand my success and pushed me off a building out of jealousy. As I fell, I clung to her clothes. Justice prevailed, and as I died, I took Mary down with me. When I opened my eyes again, Mary and I sat outside the office of the orphanage director. Sis seemed uneasy. I heard her whispering, "The rich family will end up bankrupt, I won't go with them this time. I want to be a superstar, earning millions a day." Looks like she's been reborn too. Suddenly, the office door swung open. Before Mary could react, I hugged her. "Sis, no matter who adopts us, you'll always be my sister. Sir, please adopt my sister. I'm young, I can bear hardships." Mary was taken aback, clearly not expecting this twist. Just like the previous life, the wealthy couple couldn't resist a kind kid. This time they chose me. I pretended to be reluctant and tearfully pulled on my sister's hand before finally getting into the rich man's car. As the car was about to drive off, a Porsche rolled in. The car stopped. Out came my previous life's adoptive parents, the actor and actress. The media swarmed the orphanage gate with flashes everywhere, greeting the stars. I looked back through the window, seeing the director bringing Mary to them. Mary had a beaming, excited smile. I bowed my head and chuckled. "Sister, do you really think their home is a happy place? A celebrity's facade is always glamorous, but inside it's rotten and stinks." In my past life, when I first entered their plush world, I was in awe, thinking it was heaven. It turned out to be hell. My adoptive mother, Kate, refused to have kids to maintain her figure. With surrogacy scandals rife in showbiz, she wouldn't risk it abroad either. So, she and her husband Mark adopted me from the orphanage. I was 8 then, and they took me everywhere. Initially, I thought it was because they liked me. Until those sleazy men placed their hands on my thighs, reeking of booze, whispering to me. Terrified, I sought help from my parents, only to be met with glares and instructions not to cry, to call them uncle, and let them kiss me. They pressured me into learning piano, dance, all kinds of talents. If I failed to impress them, they'd prick me with needles. Beneath Kate's pretty exterior was a monstrous face. During Mark's endless nights with other women, she'd corner me with insane fury. She'd insult me with a chilling, venomous tone, stab my fingers with pins, pinch my thighs. Whenever Mark came home, they'd argue within minutes and escalate to violence, wrecking the place. I'd curl up in a dark room, shivering, longing for the orphanage. In this hellish life, I grew up. Using their words, my face was meant to seduce men. They traded me for opportunities, sending me to big shots beds. My foster father, Mark, creeped into my room at night, his hands wandering, whispering disgusting things. "Sherry, let Daddy have a taste of you." That taste made me sick and disgusted. This time, I'll escape them. Mary played along with those devilish parents, showcasing a happy family act for the cameras. I turned away. In this life, my foster mom, Jane, held my hand warmly. "Sherry, do you miss your sister? If you ever want to see her, I'll take you." I smiled at Jane. "Thank you, Mom." She squeezed my hand tighter. That's what family feels like, a comforting warmth and strength. They got my papers done, renamed me Nancy, asked how I wanted my room, what foods I liked. In my past life, I hid in dark corners, a puppet for those devils, pleasing twisted men. Now, I rest in my mom's embrace, a real child at last. Jane, knowing I'd miss Mary, always kept me updated on her news and pictures. Mary, always poised and snobbish, looked like a princess. I wasn't sure if she had already set foot in her personal hell, but I knew she awaited the day she'd become a big star. For that day, nothing now mattered. I thrived under Jane's love, growing happy, turning 9. That day, my parents took me to the study. They both seemed serious. My mom asked, Sherry, would you like a little brother or sister? It dawned on me, she must be pregnant. In my past life, Mary secretly gave Jane birth control to ensure she'd inherit everything. Jane ended up infertile, never showing a belly till death. Mary confessed after Jane and her husband died, once she'd lost everything in her frenzy. Jane's belly couldn't have babies because of me. Sherry, don't worry. With me around, your adoptive mom can't have kids either. Their wealth will be all yours in the future. She thinks I'm just like her, only caring about money. I looked away from my mom's belly, glanced at her, then at my dad, and nodded with a smile. Of course, I'm okay with it. Both my mom and dad relaxed. They hadn't had kids before and went to an orphanage to adopt. Now that mom's pregnant, they were worried I'd feel upset, so they wanted to check in with me. My mom hugged me, Sherry, you're our lucky star. Thank you for letting me be your mom. My mom's belly grew bigger. We all looked forward to this baby coming. Meanwhile, I could still see Mary all over the news every day. We are fraternal twins. Her face, so similar to mine, was constantly smiling in front of the camera. She even had over 2 million followers on her personal account, sharing luxury gifts her parents bought her daily. Everyone envied her, saying she was lucky to have such famous and rich adoptive parents like Mark and Kate. They said she wasn't born in Rome but was lucky enough to be brought there by them. But I could tell, the sparkle in Mary's eyes was fading. Her smile became more fake. She wore heavy makeup even at a young age, plastering on thick foundation. Sometimes, she'd wear long sleeves and pants in the heat just to cover up certain marks on her body. My dear sister, she's really willing to endure for a glamorous future. In contrast, my parents kept me out of the spotlight. Not because they were ashamed of me, but for my safety. I continued living a carefree childhood. A few months later, my mom gave birth to a baby sister. Yet my parents treated me even better. I knew they didn't want me to feel left out. After school, I'd finish my homework and couldn't wait to play with my sister. I'd gently hold her little hand. In this life, I'll protect my sister, my parents, and this home. As for Mary and those devilish parents of hers, don't worry. Everything they did to me in the past life, I'll repay 1,000 times over. Through the years, Mary and I have always been parallel lines with no intersection. But I know we'll meet again soon. Just like in our past life. In this one, Mary and I met on our first day of university. We're sharing the same dorm again. My parents knew I liked entertainment stuff. Though they planned for me to study business management to inherit the family business, they respected my wishes and let me join the media college. Now, we're not family anymore. Let's pretend to be strangers. I don't want people saying I'm clinging to the richest family's daughter, Mary said when she saw me. I knew she was scared. Scared that if her family went bankrupt like before, I'd do to her what she did to me. A guilty conscience sees a treacherous heart in everyone. I nodded, okay. Mary didn't know that in the past life, if she hadn't been greedy and sold the company's secrets which caused its stock to crash, it wouldn't have gone bankrupt. Back then, when Matt and Jane found out she sold their secrets, they couldn't bear to send her to jail. But Mary feared they'd betray her one day, so she ruthlessly claimed their lives. I looked at Mary's face under her heavy makeup. No matter how well she disguised it, I could still see the exhaustion in her eyes. They were dull eyes, like a dried-up well. In fact, by this time in the past life, I rarely got beaten. All my talents had been recognized. People said I looked like a real star, granting Mark and Kate quite the reputation. They needed me to make money and connections, so they treated me well. Mark, especially, kept any violent urges under wraps. His gaze was full of grotesque intentions, but masked with fondness. But Mary? She had no such talents. It was only because Mark donated a building to the school that she got in. She posted lots of videos online, dancing, playing music, painting. Honestly, there's not much to say. She just lacked the ability and was doomed to fail. But people as vain and greedy as Mark and Kate wouldn't give up on making Mary their golden goose. Even if it meant spending lots of money. I could imagine the kind of mistreatment and abuse Mary was going through in such a situation. Didn't even need to investigate. I knew those devilish parents too well. Mary chuckled when I agreed so easily. Guess you don't have to tell me. You're the richest kid now and don't care about me, right? She walked away relieved, handing out luxury goods around other dorms to win people over. Even though the media college is full of rich kids, there's still a strict hierarchy. Mary quickly gathered her own group of followers among those less well-off than her. I stayed low-key, not revealing my family background, acting modestly in everything. In their eyes, I was just a nobody. Those two remaining people in the dorm would even say, Nancy and Mary look alike, but one's a star, and one's just an ordinary person. Same face, different fates. Mary beamed at that comment, pleased. I knew she was biding her time, waiting for my adoptive family to go bankrupt, expecting me to become a real nobody so she could humiliate and suppress me freely. She's just rotten to the core. One night, while she was showering, I accidentally walked in. Sure enough, I saw the bruises on her body. Sorry, I forgot someone was in here. Then I gasped, pretending to be shocked, what happened to you? Mary snatched a towel, throwing it over my head, get out. Her panic was obvious. For someone who always prided herself on appearances, she couldn't stand me seeing her like that. I put down the towel, turned around, and smirked. Mark and Kate didn't let me down, for sure. Mary quickly finished her morning routine and came out, glaring down at me sitting in the chair. Get out, you two. That was directed at our other two roommates. Once they left, Mary narrowed her eyes dangerously. Nancy, what you saw just now, keep it to yourself. If I hear anyone talking about it, even if it's not you, I'll blame you. I chuckled, I won't spill a word. Besides, how will you hold me accountable for anything? Even if your parents are powerful, they're just in the entertainment industry. Mary's face twisted into a snarl, then she seemed to remember something, and a smug look crossed her face. Your adoptive parents' business is about to go under. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. You better believe it, Mary said with a touch of sarcasm. Nancy, for the sake of our sisterhood, here's a little warning. You're on your own. Well, thanks for the heads up. I'll be waiting to see when my family goes bankrupt. Mary looked at me like I was an idiot, the kind of confidence found in someone who's read the script ahead of time. Nancy, you'd better drop out. When your family goes broke, you won't be able to pay tuition, which will just make you a laughingstock. Haven't you heard this art school is a money-burning furnace? Besides, with you. She looked me over from head to toe. Once you're out of money and connections, no company will want to sign you. The entertainment industry isn't what it used to be. It's dominated by rich kids nowadays. But she's speaking too soon. Whether my family goes bankrupt isn't for her to decide. In my past life, she was super jealous, always seeing me in the news. When she heard I'd be applying to a media college in an interview, she followed suit. Back then, no company wanted to sign her up. In this life, does she think having parents like Mark and Kate means she'll breeze through the industry? I decided to provoke her a bit. Oh, I heard your dad's scandal is pretty wild this time. Mary's expression immediately darkened. Since joining the industry, Mark's been a magnet for scandals, even after getting married. I knew Kate once loved him, but not long after their wedding, Mark was already cheating. It drove Kate insane. This time, there's even a bombshell about a love child. Mary's always hated the idea of her adoptive parents having other kids, because that means she wouldn't inherit everything. In my previous life, Kate didn't want kids, fearing it would ruin her figure. But this time, to hear Mark might have a child out there, it's just too good. Seeing Mary's sour face did cheer me up a bit. This is just the beginning. The real show hasn't even started. I turned to leave. Mary's angry words lingered in the air. That bastard Mark. He's ruined everything. So, the rumors are true. When the military training ended, I signed up to perform at the welcome party that evening. Of course, Mary signed up too. She couldn't possibly miss an opportunity to shine. That day, my parents came with my sister, Wendy. They sat in a corner by the door. I got a message from Mom, a voice recording. I clicked it open, and there was Wendy's sweet voice. Go, sis, go. I couldn't help but smile. Just as I finished changing, I ran into Mary. Mary wore a dance outfit similar to mine, looking all bossy. She frowned at me. Nancy, what act are you doing? I smiled and shot back, didn't you check the program? Mary, self-centered and attention-seeking, didn't care a bit for military training. She just used every spare second for dancing practice. Why would she care about what others were performing? She assumed her performance was the best. Seeing me in a similar costume, she looked annoyed, pulling out her phone to check the program list. Ethnic dance? Mary gripped her phone, stepping closer. Nancy, did you do this on purpose? I played innocent. What's wrong? Others were starting to look our way. Mary gritted her teeth and shot me a glare. Then, in a snap, she turned around and excitedly shouted, Mom. Dad. You're here. I froze, slowly turning my head. It was Mark and Kate. My adoptive parents from my previous life. Images of past abuse flashed through my mind like a slideshow. I could still feel Mark's hands on me. That time, if I hadn't hit him with the lamp and Kate hadn't started fighting him, I would have been violated. When Kate found out Mark's intentions for me, she tortured me with needles. I almost lost half my life that time. But that was a past life. I took a deep breath, struggling to calm myself. Mary tried hard to seem close with them. Mom. Dad. You're so good to me, visiting despite your busy schedule. Kate stroked her head, and I caught a tiny tremor in Mary's stance. She didn't know my parents and sister were here, putting on a brave face just to show off her newfound happiness. Mom, Dad, take your seats, please. Watch me perform. Mary sent Mark and Kate off with a boastful look at me. I've made some arrangements. Mary's act goes before mine. Finally, it was Mary's turn. She confidently took the stage. From my research, like in my past life, those two demons pushed her to learn various arts in this life too. Ethnic dance was one of them. I watched from backstage. Mary was awkward, offbeat, the only perfect score came from her self-assurance. Mark and Kate sat in the middle of the second row. From their expressions, they were less than thrilled about Mary's performance. But Mary seemed blissfully unaware, still full of confidence. As she stepped off, she shot me a challenging look. Who arranged the program like this? 2 ethnic dances back to back. Nancy, make sure you impress. Of course. I'll give it my all. This lifetime, I hadn't studied ethnic dance, and Mary knew that. She was eager for me to mess up. I let her down. In my past life, I've won so many dance competitions, I always took home the gold. When a dance ended, applause thundered from the audience. Mark and Kate's eyes were fixed right on me. Backstage, a bunch of people swarmed around me. Nancy, you danced so well. How many years have you been learning? I smiled and brushed it off, but caught Mary's eyes, full of envy and hostility. She dragged me to a spot where no one was around. Didn't you say you never learned how to dance? I loved seeing her so frustrated. So, you're admitting I dance better than you? Not far away, I heard people gossiping. Mary really didn't inherit any of Mark and Kate's artistic genes. Adopted, not their real kid, what is there to inherit? How can she have the nerve to perform on stage with that skill? Did you see her parents' faces? Priceless. Hearing this, all the color drained from Mary's face. Realization, fear, filled her eyes. No. No. She suddenly broke down, looking pale as a ghost. Nancy, it's all your fault. If today her frantic, terrified words stopped. I knew what she meant to say. If she got hit again today, it'd be because of me. But wasn't this what she'd always dreamt of? Parents she always wished for. Seeing her panic, I just wanted to say the main event is yet to come. Mary's body started trembling, and she pushed me away before running off. I changed clothes and left the stage. I glanced at the middle seat in the second row. Mark and Kate were already gone. Sister, you're in for it tonight. Mark's scandal of having an illegitimate child couldn't be hushed up. So, they came to watch Mary perform. If Mary's dance could create a buzz, media would report it, they could put on a show of a happy family, and the scandal would be overshadowed. But Mary didn't deliver. She didn't just fail, she was overshadowed by me, leaving her adoptive parents utterly disappointed. I went to find my parents. Wendy's eyes sparkled with delight. Sister, you danced so well, yours was the best act. I tapped Wendy's nose playfully. You haven't seen the rest of the show, how do you know mine was the best? Wendy tilted her head. To me, yours is always the best. My parents chuckled at that. My mom held my hand, continuing to watch the rest of the program. Wendy held my other hand. It felt really nice. After seeing off my parents and Wendy, I returned to the dorm and didn't see Mary. Around 11, I got a video. I quickly put on my headphones and played it. Mary's heart-wrenching cries pierced my ears. Mom. Please. Stop hitting me. In the video, Kate was viciously whipping Mary with a belt. Mary rolled on the floor in agony. Mark chilled on the sofa, smoking and watching. Oh, it hurt so much, please stop. Just by watching, I knew exactly how much it hurt. This was my life too when I first moved into Mark's house. Back then, whenever I was beaten to the brink of death, they'd both ignore me. A housemaid, Ruby, pitted me and gave me medicine. 2 years ago, I ran into Ruby at a supermarket near my home, purely coincidental. We got along well, even though she didn't recognize me. She vented about how Mary mistreated them. So, I teamed up with Ruby. She fed me info about Mary, and I paid her. Once my revenge was complete and Ruby saved enough, she'd retire. This video? Ruby secretly recorded and sent it to me. But she didn't apply any medicine on Mary. Wherever Mary goes, she earns no sympathy. The video showed Mary lying motionless on the floor. Only then did Mark speak up. What if people see all these bruises you put on her? Kate threw the belt at Mark. It's your damn fault. Bastard. If you hadn't had a kid out of wedlock, we could have worked it out. Mark yelled back, shut up. Blame yourself for not being able to have a kid. Turned out Kate wanted a child. Thanks to her lovely daughter, she might never get that chance. Mary returned to school a week later, still the celebrated star she always was. I purposely asked, where have you been these days? Why skip class? Mary's expression darkened for a moment, then she put on a different face. My parents took me to meet some directors. I'm about to start filming soon. I looked at her with envy. Your parents are so good to you. Mary's smile froze for a second before she regained her composure. Before she can make it in showbiz, she still has to suffer a bit. It's not like she can easily break free from those two. For now, they give her some benefits, only for her to play her part later on. Ruby told me Mary was already sleeping with Mark. I know how twisted Mark is. Talks about love, but he's all about himself. Otherwise, he wouldn't let Kate nearly beat Mary to death without saying a word. I kept on, with your parents' connections, you could start acting now. Who cares about school? You might just hit it big with one show, then they'd rely on you instead. I shrugged, sighing. Unlike me, still have to finish school, waiting for some company or director to notice me. Of course, what do you have on me? Mary boasted. She then giggled and asked, things tough at home lately? I made sure she caught the surprise in my eyes, then quickly shook my head. Stop it, I'm fine. Yeah, right, rumors of bankruptcy and all, Mary strutted away, triumphant. She wasn't focused on studies anymore, started taking gigs with her account, even reached out to directors for auditions. I had someone follow her, capturing moments with male contacts. I picked the most suggestive photos, sent them to gossip sites. Soon enough, Mark's daughter Mary rumored romance trended online. Mary's popularity was through the roof. After her audition, she was full of herself, with both buzz and a roll to her name. The dorm could hardly contain her. We're about to start filming, so I think I'll only have one more week of classes. The other two girls chimed in right away. We're so jealous of you, Mary. You're just a freshman and already acting in movies. If Mary had a tail, she'd be soaring high right now. But go ahead and enjoy. Soon enough, you might take a fall. I started reading up on business administration, planning to take courses during the winter and summer breaks. Wendy, even though she's still young, says she doesn't want to join the company when she grows up. My parents talked to me about it, saying that even if Wendy ends up in the company, she's so young now, it might be years. They still want to pass the company on to me. For Wendy's sake, of course, I'm willing to take it on. I want her to live a carefree life and do whatever she wants. And as for Mary, unsurprisingly, she was taken away by Mark the next day. I don't know exactly how Mark punished Mary, but I can imagine. Half a month later, Mary returned to school, and she didn't have that aura of a wealthy heiress anymore. She was jumpy. Even if someone passed by her, she'd get startled. If anyone touched her, she'd scream. When people asked her what was wrong, she'd calm down a bit and smile, saying she was fine. But that pale face didn't look fine at all. I knew Mark had put her through hell. She suddenly asked me, "Did they do this to you too? How did you manage?" I just smiled innocently. "What are you talking about?" Mary suddenly seemed triggered, screaming and lunging at me. "Why is this happening? Why? You get to be a big star, so why can't I? It shouldn't be this way." She shook her head, then looked at me hopefully. "Is your family going bankrupt?" I acted even more confused. "Why don't I understand what you're saying?" Our other two roommates were just stunned, murmuring softly, "Is Mary losing it?" I turned my head and smiled at them. "Don't talk nonsense." Mary was indeed losing it. In my past life, I had already become a popular star by this time. And it was also around this time that my family went bankrupt. Now, everything's turned upside down. Plus, Mary had been tormented by Mark in a horribly twisted way for days. It's no wonder she's losing it. She suddenly shoved me away and bolted. I followed right away. In her state, she might just run into traffic and get hit. I can't let her die so easily. I hailed a cab to follow her. I didn't expect her to end up at my house. My parents were both home, and they froze when Mary barged in. Mary looked around frantically, muttering, "Why haven't you gone bankrupt? It's all a facade. You must be bankrupt. It's just a hollow shell." My mom, seeing me come in, instinctively protected me. "Sherry, why are you back suddenly? Go hide in your room, just in case she hurts you." My dad called for help. "Get this lunatic out of here. I'm gonna report you. Tax evasion." "Yes, my parents did it, so you must be doing it too." She searched her clothes for her phone, coming up empty. Just before, I had paid for her taxi ride outside. "Sister." Wendy came home from school, see me, and excitedly ran over. "Why are you home?" Mary paused hearing Wendy call me sister. I hugged Wendy. "Don't be scared, Wendy." Mary, with her crazed eyes, took a few steps toward us. "Who's this kid?" She glanced at my mom. "You had a child?" "No way." On stage that day, Mary was so focused on herself, wanting nothing but her parents' attention, that she missed my parents and Wendy being there. The security team came in and dragged Mary out. Even from a distance, we could hear her angry screams. "Why is everything different? Why?" My mom let go of me. "Who is this? Why'd she come to our house?" I patted Wendy's head. "Mom, Dad, this is my sister. You met her back at the orphanage." My parents were shocked. They sighed. "Sherry, we know you're related by blood, but whatever happens, you must protect yourself." "Thanks, Mom and Dad. I know where to draw the line." The next day, back at school, I saw Mary. She looked more normal, but her eyes couldn't hide the animosity. "Nancy, don't get too happy. I won't lose to you. In the past life, she did win. But this time, I'll make sure she loses everything. Including her life." Mary still doesn't believe our fates have entirely changed. "I've already signed up for the Golden Deer Goddess selection. Do you dare to compete with me?" In the past, I claimed the Golden Deer Goddess title. It helped secure my position as a leading star. I sighed softly. "If you want to compete, I'll register as well." When it was just the two of us in the dorm, I grabbed her hand. "Sister, I'll follow your lead. Can you tell me what really happened to you?" Mary flung my hand away. "Who's your sister?" "Now that there's no one else around, since you're really my sister, how can I not worry seeing you like this?" I asked, sighing. When it comes to acting, I've got her beat. "Sister, is someone bullying you? Are your adoptive parents treating you badly? Are they abusing you?" Mary studied me. "Do you know if they are?" "I just know you're Mary, and whatever happens, I want you to be okay." I wiped away tears and continued, "If your adoptive parents are hurting you, please tell me, but don't go causing a scene at my house. You were going to report my parents for tax evasion. Just because your parents broke the law doesn't mean mine did. Why don't you report your parents?" Hearing this, a gleam appeared in Mary's eyes. She suddenly laughed aloud. Even without them, I can make my mark in the entertainment industry. I'm sure she heard me. By the next morning, the scandal about Mark and Kate's tax evasion exploded online. Just like those legal hotshots before, they got blacklisted. I finished watching the news and wasn't satisfied at all. That dreadful couple deserves to rot in hell. I pulled Mary into an empty classroom. Sis, did you really report your parents? Once they pay the back taxes, they won't have to go to jail, she replied. But if they find out it was you, they'll kill you. I looked at her worriedly. Sis, I don't want you dead. They're the ones who should die. Mary nodded, her eyes lost in a menacing thought. Yeah, they deserve it. A few days later, the internet was ablaze with headlines about Mark and Kate's fatal fire. I was there when it happened. Those two were carried out by the firefighters, burned beyond recognition. I shuddered with an overwhelming sense of excitement. Mary was mentally and physically consumed by madness, just like she was in a past life. She became a deadly weapon with just a bit of guidance. I finally managed to take care of those two. The case was still under investigation. Back at school, Mary looked radiant. Nancy, I'm going to be in a movie. I've already got the time off. She walked over, smiling. Mark and Kate committed tax evasion and died. I'm going to publicly cut ties with them. Who needs parents like that? I nodded. Yeah, you definitely don't need them. But sis, did they really kill themselves? I asked, pretending to be puzzled. Mary's smile instantly disappeared. The police are still investigating. They might even question you again. You might not join the movie right away. A fleeting expression of guilt crossed her face. Why would they question me? They killed themselves. But just as I had predicted, the police did restrict Mary from leaving the city. In the following days, she became visibly more anxious and stopped attending school altogether. By the time October break rolled around, I returned home and surprisingly found Mary there. She was kneeling before my parents, tears streaming down her face. Mom, Dad, don't you recognize me? I'm your real daughter. My mom saw me and immediately walked over, saying, Sherry, something's really off with her. Should we take her to the hospital? My mom added, she is still your sister. Mary lunged, trying to pull me away from my mom. You're supposed to adopt me. It was supposed to be me. In our last life, you chose me too. You're not going bankrupt, are you? She cried out. Everything's different now, unlike before. She grabbed my shoulders. You know, don't you? You did this on purpose. You've been reborn too. Nancy, you've orchestrated all this, haven't you? I raised my hand to calm her. Sis, relax. You're acting crazy. Out of respect for me, my parents prepared a room for her. I knew she set the fire that killed Mark and Kate. Given her current mental state, even if there's solid proof, she won't get the death penalty. At most, they'll put her in a mental hospital. I told you, I want to make her lose everything, including her life. I want her to see herself fall into hell while fully aware. The next morning, I went to Mary's room. Sis, breakfast is ready. She jolted upright. The police are here to arrest me. They're coming to get me. I quickly comforted her. No, they're not. Don't worry, sis, I'll protect you. I smiled slightly. Come on, let's get some breakfast. At the table, my parents kept serving Wendy and me food while Mary watched, jealousy raging within her. After the meal, she suddenly apologized to my parents. Uncle, Aunt, I didn't mean it when I said you were going bankrupt. Please don't take it to heart. My parents just smiled distantly, not saying much more. Mary wasn't satisfied. She's determined to win over my parents. She's such a greedy person. But she'll choke on her own greed. I stayed by her side every day. By the end of the break, Mary seemed to trust me. She asked, Sherry, can you persuade Uncle and Aunt to adopt me too? That way, we'll always be sisters. She was coherent and her thoughts clear. I hesitated, then said, actually, I brought it up with Mom and Dad, but they said. Mary grasped my hand tightly, said what? Tears welled up in my eyes. They said having Wendy and me is enough. Mary shot up like a bullet. She glanced at me, said nothing, and left. I sneaked after her and watched her enter my mom's room. Just outside the door, I listened. Ma'am, I really love this family. I love you and Uncle, and little Wendy. Please let me be your daughter. I promise to do better than Sherry. I'll definitely win the Golden Deer Goddess Award soon, Mary pleaded. After a moment of silence and my reassuring nod, my mom replied, all right, if you win the Golden Deer Goddess, I'll adopt you. Mary marched out, her arrogance plastered all over her face when she saw me. I laughed. Sis, ever heard of a last meal? Mary didn't think much of my words. She was now all about winning the Golden Deer Goddess and officially joining our family. She was practically obsessed with checking the votes every day. Initially, she was the front runner. We both fought fiercely through every round, reaching the final match. It was down to just us two, and our votes were neck and neck. To keep the audience in suspense, the final vote tally was locked and only accessible internally. Confident in her victory over me, she was unaware that the entire event was just using her for publicity. With all her negative press, her adoptive parents' tax evasion and their sudden deaths in a fire, there was no way she could become the Golden Deer Goddess. On the day the results were announced, my whole family went to the TV station. Mary and I, both in glamorous evening gowns, sat in the audience. Mary leaned towards me, whispering, Nancy, Mom and Dad agreed that if I win the Golden Deer Goddess, they'll adopt me. How about a bet? Let's say the winner stays. Are you game? I wondered, where's the logic? Would anyone sane agree to such a bet? But in front of Mary, I could hardly act normal. I smirked, deal. The host's voice boomed, cubing the moment of truth. At the 26th Golden Deer Festival, the winner of the Golden Deer Goddess was announced. I turned my head to look at Mary. She had her chin slightly raised, still as confident as ever. Lately, her spirits have seemed much better. Nancy. The host's voice came again. Congratulations. Amidst the applause, I stood up, turned to bow to everyone, and walked up to the stage. No way. Mary suddenly stood up. The camera quickly cut away. The audience behind me was buzzing. Mary was already being restrained by someone. She had gone into one of her crazy states again. The Golden Deer Goddess is mine. My parents are mine. I'm the real heiress. Nancy, I'll kill you. I want to kill you. Finally, Mary's mouth was covered, and she was dragged away. I walked up to the stage, accepting the honor that was rightfully mine. This one thing, whether in a past life or this one, has never changed. The police were still investigating the true cause of Mark and Kate's deaths. They finally had some leads. Someone provided them with video footage of the fire from that day. Meanwhile, Mary called me, asking to meet on the roof of the business tower. In my past life, she had pushed me from this building to my death. Sure enough, whether in the past or this life, when Mary was desperate, she'd always try to take me down with her. Just like before, Mary looked a bit agitated when she saw me. Sherry, aren't you supposed to be a good sister? She sneered. If you die, I can be the rich daughter again. As for Wendy, she should never have been born. I'll be her family's only daughter. My gaze gradually turned cold. Mary shouldn't have made her move on Wendy. I looked at Mary, speaking slowly and clearly, you don't deserve to be my sister, and I will always be Wendy's sister. Then die, Mary spat, emotions flaring as she prepared to lunge at me. That's when the hidden police officers emerged. Hands up, don't move, they ordered. Mary's face changed drastically. She stumbled, losing her balance, and fell. As she fell, she tried to grab me, her eyes filled with madness. But I swiftly moved aside, and Mary grabbed nothing but air. Out of Mary's sight, my right foot was already tied to the sturdiest pillar in the building. Mary died. The fall was gruesome. After I completed my statement at the police station, I walked out. Outside, the sky was a bright blue. I took out my phone and called Ruby. After meeting up, I handed Ruby the last bit of money. You can retire now, I said. Ruby left with the money. I had asked Ruby to record the video, which served as evidence. Although Mary died, she was still guilty. I went home. My parents and Wendy came over to hug me. Sherry, people can't come back to life. Don't be too sad, they consoled. I hugged my family. I'm not sad at all. Because the ones I love are right here with me. My real life is finally beginning.